Welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah.
You gave us the sources, the notes, the fan theories, and yeah, those internal predictions too. Our mission, as always, is to cut right through all that noise.
That's right. We're here to give you the blueprint, or as close as we can get, for what's really coming next in your favorite storylines.
And today, wow, are we immersing ourselves completely? We're diving into a story that's just dripping with high-stakes romantic drama, psychological complexity. I mean, it's got to be the ongoing, really painful separation of Xander Kyriakis and Sarah Horton.
Oh, absolutely. They are, I think it's fair to say, indisputably the furthest apart they've been in years. I mean, legally separated.
Right.
But, and this is the key thing, every single source we've looked at, every analysis, it confirms this one kind of universal truth.
Yeah.
They are still profoundly, intensely deep in love.
And that deep love, honestly, that's the only reason we're even doing this deep dive today. We're not just, throwing darts and speculating about if they might get back together. We have some pretty reliable intel from a key leaker, actually, indicating that Xander and Sarah's reconciliation, it's predicted to happen, like definitively, before the holidays.
And that prediction, well, it changes everything, doesn't it? It shifts our whole focus.
Yeah.
So our goal today isn't really to ask if they'll reunite. We kind of take that as a given based on the intel.
Right.
Instead, we're here to analyze the exact and probably very complicated pathway they absolutely must take to get there. To achieve that reunion, we're basically mapping the journey.
Mapping the journey. I like that. So identifying the specific failures, maybe, that each of them has to overcome.
Exactly. And who has to swallow their pride first? Because someone definitely has to.
Oh, for sure. Pride seems like a big player here.
Huge. And what concrete actions, what deeds are actually required to bridge this, well, catastrophic gap. It's a gap of violence and betrayal that's separating them right now.
And currently, like you said, they're just stuck. Stuck in neutral, locked in this really awkward dance, trying to co-parent their beautiful little toddler daughter, Victoria.
Yeah, and every time they have to interact, you can just feel the tension, can't you? The sources, they paint a pretty grim picture. Months, apparently, spent just ignoring those really obvious deep feelings.
And choosing conflict instead.
Choosing conflict, yeah, and just this painful refusal to budge an inch. Stubbornness.
Okay, let's really unpack this then, because before we can even start mapping that future path, we have to get precise about the core conflict. What actually drove them apart this past summer? Because it wasn't like a slow drifting apart, was it? It felt very sudden, a catastrophic failure of trust.
It really was, and it highlights this toxic cycle that, honestly, they both seem to engage in repeatedly, this idea of lying for the greater good.
Yeah, yes, that old chestnut.
It started this time with Sarah.
Yeah.
She kept this monumental secret, right? And it was rooted in all that corporate maneuvering at Titan. She kept the lie going about Philip's forgery.
Philip's forgery, designed to just cause chaos in the Kyriakis corporate structure, basically.
Right.
Pretty much. And the consequences of Sarah staying quiet, of her silence, they were immediate, brutal even. This lie, ultimately, it cost Xander half of his position at Titan Industries. Half.
Half of Titan. And you got to remember, for Kyriakis, that's not just losing a job. That's legacy, its power, its identity.
Yeah.
Especially in that dynasty.
Exactly.
But what seems to make it so incredibly difficult for Xander to swallow isn't just the financial hit or the power loss. It's Sarah's justification that came with it.
Yes. That justification, that's the key psychological trigger right there. She claimed the lie was, quote, for Xander's own good.
Oh.
Asserting that she was, what? Protecting him from the toxicity, maybe, or perhaps even from his own worst impulses, by keeping the truth from him.
And that echoes a pattern, doesn't it? You mentioned this cycle.
It absolutely does. We'll get into it more later, but it's this pattern where both Xander and Sarah try to control these really high-stakes situations through, frankly, profound deception.
And they always justify it.
Yeah.
Always with this supposed selfless intent. I did it for you.
Always. But Xander, I mean, he's the one who took the hit, right? He lost half of Titan. He saw zero good intentions there.
No, the source notes are pretty clear. He saw it as a severe, calculated betrayal.
Right.
Full stop.
He felt his wife hadn't just lied to him, but had actually taken the side of Philip. Philip the Weasel, I think, is the term the sources use.
Huh. Yeah, that sounds about right for Xander's view of his brother.
Yeah.
Long-standing resentment there.
Definitely. So this perceived disloyalty, it felt deeply, deeply personal to Xander. It activated something way darker in him than just, business frustration about the forgery.
And that darker activation.
Yeah.
That led directly to his violent reaction, didn't it?
Straight to it. The betrayal, the loss of power, Sarah siding with Philip.
Yeah.
It was just too much. The sources really highlight this. While Xander was physically attacking Philip, beating him, as they put it, to a bloody pulp.
Which is just horrific imagery.
It is. But Philip was likely taking the full kinetic brunt of all of Xander's frustrations. Not just about the forgery itself, but simmering underneath, maybe even more powerfully, was the frustration over Sarah's disloyalty.
And that violence, the sheer brutality of it, that was Sarah's absolute breaking point. Her red line.
Completely. She was horrified, disgusted. The sources say she immediately turned her back completely on him, just shut down.
And the irony, the really painful irony here is that they probably both think they've got the moral high ground.
Oh, absolutely. Xander feels justified in his rage because of how deep the initial lie went, how much it cost him.
Right. His sense of betrayal feels righteous to him.
And Sarah feels completely justified in her revulsion because, well, look at the shocking brutality of his response. It's terrifying.
So they're locked.
Yeah.
Locked in this cycle of just mutual disgust, really. Neither one willing to see the other's point.
And we really can't understand Xander's extreme reaction, that level of violence, without diving into those deep-rooted psychological barriers, the things that really govern his behavior.
Okay. This is crucial, you think, for understanding how they might get back together.
Absolutely crucial, because it dictates what kind of repair work is actually needed.
The core identity stuff, though.
Precisely, Xander. Okay, despite the expensive suits, the corporate swagger, which is why some sources affectionately call him Dandy Xandy.
Dandy Xandy.
Okay. Deep down, he has profound mommy issues and daddy issues. Huge ones. His relationship with his father, Victor Kiriakis, remember, it was always this tortured quest for approval, for love, for legitimacy, especially within Titan, the family business structure. He never really felt unconditionally worthy, never quite measured up in his own mind or maybe in Victor's.
Okay, so if Xander's entire sense of self, his whole identity, is built around constantly fighting for his place, always feeling like the outsider who has to prove his loyalty, prove his worth to the patriarch, to the Kiriakis name, what does Sarah represent in that picture? What does she mean to him?
Well, Sarah and their daughter, Victoria, they aren't just his family in the, everyday sense. The sources describe them as his heart and soul, his whole world.
Wow.
They represent the one stable, maybe the only stable, pure, unconditional source of love and acceptance he feels he's ever really known. They're his anchor against all that Kiriakis chaos and judgment.
Okay, that context, that is absolutely vital.
Yeah.
Because if Sarah is his one source of that unconditional acceptance, for her to then choose loyalty to somebody else over him.
And not just somebody else, but his deeply resented brother, Philip.
Then that wasn't just like a normal marital spat about corporate secrets.
Oh, no. Not even close. For Xander, that was a total psychological regression.
Wow.
It felt like the ultimate betrayal of his very worth, his core self.
Like it proved his deepest fear true.
Exactly. It triggered that fundamental childhood wound, the one that always whispered, "You are not worthy of loyalty. You are not loved unconditionally." And the rage that poured out, that wasn't just anger about Titan. That was the reaction of that wounded inner child. And that, as the sources put it, was just too much for Dandy Xandy to deal with in anything resembling a healthy way.
So we end up with this perfect storm. You've got one person, Xander, feeling like his entire worth was just annihilated by a deceptive act, which then led him to violence.
Right.
And the other person, Sarah, is utterly horrified by that violence, which to her is just proof that he's fundamentally unchanged, maybe even dangerous.
And that brings us right back to the present standstill. They are both, as the sources say, just too hurt still to even begin to process the situation rationally.
They can't see past their own pain.
Not at all. They maintain such a dim view of each other's current character. Sarah sees him as a thug, basically. Xander sees her as a betrayer.
And neither is willing to swallow their pride and make amends. Not yet, anyway.
Not yet. Even though, and the sources concern this too, they keep exchanging those painful, those lingering looks.
The lingering looks, classic.
Classic soap opera, right. But it acknowledges those deep feelings that just refuse to die. They're still there under all the anger and hurt. The path forward from here, it's going to require a miracle of ego death from one or maybe both of them.
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture, the obvious counter question comes up, right? Why on earth do we think reconciliation is inevitable? I mean, after a betrayal of this magnitude, corporate sabotage, followed by extreme violence, Why are analysts, why are fans so certain they will reunite before the holidays?
Yeah, it seems like a huge mountain to climb.
It is, but this is where their shared history becomes their greatest advocate. It's the foundation that makes a reunion plausible, maybe even unavoidable.
Okay, so what's the first big sign pointing that way?
Well, the first major sign is actually structural. It's about the prediction regarding their legal status. It's almost like a narrative assurance baked into the story.
Despite the legal separation they're going through now, that reliable leaker we mentioned, they indicate that Xander and Sarah will never be divorced, at least not as part of this scenario.
Never divorced.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a big statement.
it's huge. This narrative certainty, it essentially puts a time limit on the current conflict. It signals to us, and maybe to the characters implicitly, that this current trauma, however bad, it's merely a hurdle. It's not the definitive ending to their story.
So basically, everyone watching, everyone in Salem even, knows the fundamental, undeniable love is still there. It's just buried right now.
Exactly, buried deep but still there. But the real analytical weight, the reason we can seriously talk about reconciliation, comes from Sarah's history. Her unbelievable, almost pathological history of forgiveness when it comes to Xander.
Right. She has historically forgiven him for things that were arguably far worse than him beating up his brother in a fit of corporate rage.
Far worse. And we absolutely have to spend some time detailing that key far worse example because it is staggering. And it perfectly encapsulates that flawed, high-stakes moral cycle they seem stuck in.
You're talking about the stolen baby plotline, aren't you?
I am. The infamous stolen baby plotline. Sarah, in her past, she let it slide. And that phrase itself is kind of amazing when Xander lied about her biological baby dying.
Which is unimaginable grief.
Unimaginable. And then he didn't just lie. He stole a different, healthy baby, Mickey, who turned out to be Brady and Kristen's daughter, Rachel, and placed that baby in Sarah's arms, deceiving her completely into believing the stolen child was her own.
Okay, let's just pause there for context, because we need to really absorb the difference in scale here. We are contrasting Sarah keeping a secret about a corporate forgery, which cost Xander money and power, with Xander committing actual theft, identity deception, and profound trauma manipulation regarding the life and death of Sarah's own child. The moral weight, it's just orders of magnitude different.
It absolutely is. But here's the devastating irony. The thing the sources highlight as maybe, just maybe, suggesting a path to resolution this time.
Okay.
Xander justified stealing that baby back then by claiming it was the best thing for her. He genuinely seemed to believe he was protecting her from the unbearable grief of losing her child. That was his twisted logic.
Right, the protective lie justification again.
Exactly. Now, fast forward to this recent rift, the one we're talking about now. Sarah used the exact same logic for keeping the Philip forgery lie secret from Xander. She claimed it was for Xander's own good.
Wow.
Then
It really is a shared pathology, isn't it? They both resort to this paternalistic protective lying.
It seems so. And the analyst argument goes, this parallel justification, this reliance on deciding what's best for the other person and lying to achieve it, maybe that should be the mechanism that allows them to hash this out.
The thinking being, if Sarah was ultimately able to forgive the manipulation and trauma of the stolen baby plot, then Xander should, logically, be able to forgive a fib about a corporate forgery. Especially since she used his own flawed rationale against him in a way.
That's the logical argument, yes. But here's the critical distinction, the potential sticking point this time.
Okay.
The forgery lie, the one Sarah told, it was immediately and directly tied to Xander's professional identity, his place at Titan, his family legacy, which, as we established, links right back to those core mommy and daddy issues, his fundamental sense of worth.
So forgiving the stolen baby thing was about navigating personal grief and trauma.
Which is immense, don't get me wrong.
Of course. But forgiving this corporate betrayal, it hits his sense of fundamental self-worth, which is why the required amends, the path to forgiveness, might be so much more complicated for him this time around.
Exactly. It strikes at the heart of his deepest insecurities in a way the baby situation, horrific as it was, maybe didn't.
That makes a disturbing amount of sense. Okay, so beyond this history of extreme, almost unbelievable forgiveness, what else keeps the hope for reunion alive?
Well, they have this immense, resilient foundation that's been built on just shared survival. They've been through hell together.
Right.
And they also have a surprisingly powerful network of family and community support, people who are actively rooting for their reunion. That external pressure or maybe encouragement can be really important.
Who's in their corner?
Well, we know, for instance, that Holly Jonas, who's Sarah's niece, is actively rooting for her Aunt Sarah to get back together with Xander. Family perception matters in Salem, you know.
Yeah, well,
And crucially, Xander's own cousin, Alex Kyriakis, apparently knows Sarah still harbors deep feelings for Xander. He sees it.
Yeah, Alex actually tried to intervene, didn't he? Tried to play messenger.
He did. He apparently tried relaying some of Sarah's feelings back to Xander, telling him she missed him.
yeah.
You know, likely hoping to soften Xander's hardened stance, maybe crack that shell of anger.
And how did Xander take that?
Not well. Xander, still locked down in that salty, wounded pride.
Salty. Good word for it.
He responded to Alex's attempt with just glares and pushback. Basically told him to butt out. He's refusing to even accept the good news that she might miss him. It just reinforces how strong that pride barrier is. That's the thing that really has to be overcome.
That pride barrier is immense. But let's talk more about that shared trauma you mentioned, because that gives their relationship a foundation, a depth that most couples, frankly, could never understand or survive.
Right. The list of hardships they have overcome together in just the last few years, it's staggering.
Yeah.
It demonstrates a depth of shared experience that is almost unparalleled.
It's like a battlefield partnership, as some sources apparently term it.
That's a good way to put it. They have navigated multiple kidnappings. Both Sarah and their daughter, Victoria, have been kidnapped. Think about the terror of that.
Unbelievable.
They faced profound shared grief during the death of the family patriarch, Victor Kyriakis, a loss that was absolutely central to both their lives, and especially to Xander's whole quest for legitimacy.
Right, the end of an era for both of them.
And we absolutely cannot gloss over that horrific attack by Fiona Cook, remember that? She ran Sarah over while drunk driving, leaving her paralyzed for a time.
Oh, God, yes, that was brutal.
And then, as if that wasn't enough, in this terrifying escalation, Fiona tried to kill Sarah by throwing her down the stairs.
Just pure nightmare fuel.
Absolutely. So think about the implication of facing that level of life and death, near total destruction, together. Most couples would fracture under just one of those pressures. Kidnapping, grief, attempted murder, paralysis.
Yeah, any one of those could end a relationship.
But Xander and Sarah, they survived all of them together. This means that despite the current hostility, despite the anger and betrayal, there is this inherent, tested resilience deep within their bond.
They know, deep down, maybe subconsciously even, that they can trust each other with their actual lives.
Exactly. Even if, right now, they don't trust each other with the truth or with corporate loyalty or with managing their tempers, that shared history, that survival bond. That's why the prediction of reconciliation holds such analytical weight. It's not just wishful thinking. It's based on proven durability.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting, I think. Because if we accept the premise, based on the intel, that the reunion is guaranteed before the holidays, then the analysis shifts, doesn't it? It's not why they'll reunite, but the specific how. How do they actually get from A to B, from this state of mutual disgust to reconciliation?
Precisely. And the sources suggest two main scenarios, two dramatically distinct pathways for who caves first, who makes the big move, and what complex or maybe surprisingly simple actions are required to actually seal the deal.
Two scenarios. Okay, let's break them down. What's scenario A?
Scenario A is what you might call the mountain climbing approach. It's the more stereotypical pathway, maybe. It places the vast majority of the burden, the required character change, entirely on Xander.
So Xander has to do all the heavy lifting in this one.
Pretty much. He has to come to the realization that he needs to undertake this massive effort, a combination, the sources say, of words and deeds, to fundamentally prove he's worthy of winning back his soulmate, Sarah.
Okay, let's break down the required conditions for Xander in scenario A. What's the first step on this mountain climb?
Condition 1 focuses directly on the character flaw that really caused the physical rift in the first place. His volatile temper, his tendency toward violence.
Right, the thing that horrified Sarah.
Exactly. So he absolutely must continue his therapy, his anger management sessions with the longtime local psychiatrist, Dr. Marlena Evans.
Oh, Marlena. Good old Marlena.
And we should probably address the confusion in some of the source notes here. Sometimes they refer to her by nicknames like Marina or Dr. Marlena Evans.
That's weird.
Yeah, a bit weird, but rest assured they definitely mean Dr. Marlena Evans. And her involvement here is seen as absolutely crucial.
Because Sarah's primary hang-up right now, the main reason she's keeping Victoria away from him, is specifically her worry about his temper. His instinct, as the sources put it, to punch first and ask questions later.
She fears that modeling of violence, that lack of control, is just a terrible influence on their toddler daughter. Understandably so.
Totally. So just saying, I'm sorry, I'll change, isn't going to cut it for Sarah this time.
Absolutely not. Verbal assurances are completely insufficient here. To truly sway Sarah, to convince her he's serious, Xander needs tangible proof. He needs to obtain an actual, official anger management achievement certificate from Dr. Merlina.
Like a literal certificate.
Apparently so, like graduating anger management. This certification is the concrete external proof that he's not just talking about changing anymore, but that he has invested the hard psychological work necessary to actually shed that violent pattern.
The same pattern that previously had him threatening to take a baseball bat to rivals like Brady Black, right?
Yeah. Exactly that pattern. So that certificate, that has to be his first major demonstrable step in winning Sarah back under this scenario. Proof of concept.
Okay, certificate obtained. What's condition 2? This one addresses the root cause, the origin of the betrayal.
Yes, condition 2 tackles the Titan issue head on. And this forces Xander to swallow a massive amount of that pride we talked about. He has to make a significant organizational sacrifice.
How so?
He has to cave to pressure from his family. Specifically, the sources mention Alex Kyriakis and Stephanie Johnson, who are pushing hard for corporate stability at Titan. They want the drama over.
And what's the specific action required of Xander?
It's complex, and you know it's going to be painful for him. Xander must legitimize Philip. He has to officially assign Philip the co-CEO position at Titan Industries alongside himself.
Wow. Co-CEO. With Philip, the guy he blames for everything?
Very same. It has to be a public professional acknowledgement that he is prioritizing corporate healing, family peace, over his own personal resentment and desire for control.
And this action, it ties right back into that psychological wound, doesn't it? The forgery, the loss of power, it attacked his sense of worth within the Kyriakis structure.
Directly.
So forcing him to elevate the very person he despises, the person who played a role in betraying him.
Huh.
That must be excruciating for Dandy Zandy.
Oh, absolutely excruciating. The sources explicitly note Xander is incredibly salty about this suggestion. He hates the idea. It requires him to relinquish sole power, to formally share the prestige he fought so hard for with Philip, of all people.
But the analysts think this is a necessary step, a transactional one maybe?
Necessary is the word they use. By officially making Philip co-CEO, Xander essentially takes the original forgery issue off the table. He acknowledges that the business, the family legacy must be stabilized regardless of his personal ego. It symbolizes moving past the source of Sarah's initial lie, even if it kills him to do it.
Okay, so therapy certificate, check.
Yeah.
Co-CEO status granted to Philip, check. What's left? Condition 3 sounds dramatic. The grand heroic deed.
Yes. The therapy and the corporate restructuring, they prove his internal change and his professional maturity, right?
Mm-hmm.
The heroic deed is needed to prove his renewed commitment to their physical well-being, to prove he's truly the protector, not the aggressor.
So words and deeds.
Yeah.
This is the ultimate deed.
It has to be massive, a combination of words and a huge deed. The sources actually list specific, almost archetypal, heroic examples that might fit the bill.
Like what?
Like protecting Philip. Imagine that. Actively defending the brother he despises. That would be the ultimate sign of moving past his resentment.
Okay, that's big. What else?
Or doing something surprisingly, genuinely nice for Brady Black. Proving he's mastered that rivalry, that violent impulse towards competitors.
Less dramatic, but maybe psychologically significant.
Definitely. Or the classic soap opera trope, saving their daughter Victoria from a burning house. You can almost picture it, right? High stakes, pure heroism.
Oh yeah, peak drama.
Or maybe rescuing Maggie Horton Kyriakis, Sarah's mother, or even Sarah herself from some kind of danger.
So basically putting himself on the line for his family.
Exactly. The analysts believe that this capstone action, this undeniable proof of selfless heroism, possibly even risking his own life, that's the necessary external validation. That's what finally seals the deal, allowing Sarah to fully trust his character again, to believe the change is real and permanent. It's a long, hard road in scenario A. Now, let's pivot and analyze the entirely contrasting scenario B. This one, the sources suggest, would be genuinely new and different, and potentially much, much faster.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What happens in scenario B?
Scenario B relies on Sarah having the epiphany. Sarah realizing that she simply cannot move on, that life without Xander isn't working, because Xander, despite all his massive flaws, is undeniably her person.
The her person realization.
Okay.
So Sarah takes the initiative here.
Yes. And this scenario is appealing narratively because it flips the script, doesn't it? Sarah is the injured party, the one who walked away in righteous revulsion. For her to be the one to come back, well, that means she has to overcome her own immense pride. And maybe for Sarah, that's even harder than Xander climbing his mountain of deeds.
Interesting point. Pride works both ways.
It absolutely does. And the analyst commentary on this particular path is, well, it's quite striking. They posit that if Sarah is the one making the move, initiating the reconciliation, she could make very short work of this.
Very short work.
How? Because, and this is a direct quote from the sources, and it's definitely a bit controversial, men are much simpler creatures.
Oh, boy. Okay. Let's interrogate that phrase for a second. Men are much simpler creatures. Why would the source theory reduce Xander's incredibly complex psychological landscape, his corporate trauma, all of that, down to him being just simple?
Yeah, it's blunt, isn't it? I think the theory reflects a specific idea about Xander's primary need in this conflict. The argument is that his deepest need isn't really about corporate power, or even necessarily the validation of completing therapy. It's about confirmation. Confirmation that he is unconditionally accepted and crucially desired by the person who represents his whole world, Sarah.
So if Sarah, who kind of represents purity and morality in his eyes,
Right.
if she chooses to abandon her moral outrage, her disgust, and choose him anyway, flaws and all,
Yeah.
that heals the psychological wound of disloyalty almost instantly.
That's the theory. It suggests that her acceptance, her choosing him despite everything, is the ultimate validation he craves. It bypasses all the complex steps of scenario A.
Okay, so if Sarah's the one doing the wooing, Xander doesn't have to climb the entire mountain. No certificate, no co-CEO drama, no burning building rescue needed.
Apparently not, according to this scenario. It could potentially short-circuit all of that, saving months of storyline.
So what is the required action for Sarah in scenario B? What does she have to do to make this very short work of reconciliation?
It's presented as a surprisingly simple two-part solution, fast and direct.
Okay, part one.
Part one is the required verbal sacrifice. A swift, sincere apology. She has to swallow her pride and acknowledge her own failure in the original conflict, the lie that started it all.
She has to admit she was wrong.
Yes. And the required dialogue, according to the analysis, is quite precise. Something along the lines of, I'm sorry, I was wrong for keeping that secret about Philip, and I'm proud of all the hard work you're doing to make yourself a better man for our daughter.
Okay, that's interesting. That apology, it addresses both the historical rift, the Philip lie, and it validates his current efforts, his character trajectory, the therapy he's supposedly doing.
Exactly. It gives him that unconditional emotional acceptance he craves, acknowledging both her part in the problem and his efforts to fix himself. It hits all the right notes for his specific insecurities.
Okay, that's part one. The pride-swallowing apology. What's part two?
Well, part two, according to the analyst, suggests the emotional component needs to be immediately followed by a powerful display of, well, physical desire. It symbolizes the final conquest of reason, of her moral objections, by passion.
Okay, so the sincere verbal apology needs to be followed by
Sarah showing him she's wearing lacy lingerie.
lacy lingerie. Seriously, that's the analysis.
That's what the source material suggests is the second part of the simple solution in scenario B. The apology creates the emotional opening, and lingerie seals the deal. Signaling her desire trumps her judgment.
Wow, okay. So the analysts are suggesting that this specific combination, the emotional submission through the apology and the physical submission, I guess, through desire, that should be the end of it. Immediate reconciliation.
That's the posit. Immediate reconciliation. It's a really striking, incredibly fast-paced contrast to Xander's potentially year-long list of requirements in scenario A. It basically posits that their intense physical and emotional connection is the ultimate cheat code. It can override everything else. Logic, morality, corporate drama, all swept away.
Okay, so this brings up an important question, doesn't it? Since we're taking reconciliation as a given, what external factors are currently operating? What's pushing them together or maybe pulling them apart right now? And how might those forces actually aid the reconciliation timeline, even if unintentionally?
Because their current standoff, this Cold War they're having, it must be creating opportunities for other people, right? Nature abhors a vacuum, especially in Salem.
Oh, absolutely. And we definitely have several interlopers circling, people who are, shall we say, seizing the opportunity created by Xander and Sarah's separation.
Okay, who's the biggest threat? Who's making moves?
Well, the most immediate romantic threat, the one who could complicate the reconciliation timeline, appears to be Brady Black.
Brady.
Yeah.
Interesting. Why him? Brady, apparently seeing a vulnerable Sarah, maybe someone who needs rescuing or at least comforting, is throwing himself in her path more and more. He's making himself available. The source indicates pretty clearly that he is actively crushing on Sarah soon, hoping perhaps for a rebound romance, or maybe something more.
Okay, so Brady's making a play. How does that help them reconcile? Seems like it would pull them further apart.
Well, paradoxically, this external pressure from Brady, who is, let's face it, a generally stable, appealing guy, a constant presence in Sarah's life, that might actually be the catalyst for Sarah. It might force her hand.
How so?
It might force her to recognize her true feelings for Xander. So the presence of this viable, stable, available rival, it might ironically push Sarah towards that scenario B realization we just talked about.
Oh, okay. So the idea is the potential loss of Xander, maybe seeing him move on, combined with the risk of settling for someone safer, like Brady, it makes her realize that Xander, even with his whole bad boy thing, his darkness.
Exactly, that he's the only man for her. The rival clarifies her own desires, forces the final choice before it's too late.
Makes sense. Okay, so Brady's potentially pushing Sarah toward Xander, ironically. Is anyone circling Xander?
Oh, absolutely. Sarah isn't the only one being courted during the separation. Xander also has his own interlopers, and they're complicating his efforts at therapy, at corporate negotiation, everything.
Like who?
Well, Gwen Ridchick, she's apparently still hot for Xander, always seems to be, doesn't she?
Yeah, that tracks. Gwen's always lurking.
So she provides this constant, ready alternative for Xander should Sarah hesitate too long, or should his scenario A efforts fail. Gwen's right there, willing.
Okay, so Gwen's a factor. Anyone else?
And the sources also note that Gabby Hernandez is playing games, but interestingly, she's playing games with both Xander and Philip.
Gabby. Okay, that just adds another layer of chaos, especially at the corporate environment Xander's trying to stabilize in scenario A.
Precisely. So you have these external romantic pressures, these available figures like Brady and Gwen, maybe even Gabi stirring the pot. They raise the stakes for both Xander and Sarah. If they drag their feet on reconciling, one of these interlopers could plausibly sink their chances for that pre-holiday reunion we're expecting. Time is of the essence.
Right. Adds urgency. Now, what about Philip? He's not really an interloper in the romantic sense, but he's central to this whole mess.
Yeah.
What's his role going forward?
Yeah, Philip's role is perhaps the most surprising external factor, especially given his part in the original rift. I mean, the forgery he committed was the catalyst for this entire separation.
Exactly. He caused the problem.
But the leaker specifically says Philip will be involved in efforts to help reconcile Xander and Sarah.
Help them. Why would he do that, and how?
Well, it feels counterintuitive at first, doesn't it? Unless the Titan situation gets resolved first, specifically via scenario A.
Okay.
Yeah.
Connect the dots for me.
If Xander does go through with scenario A, if he swallows his pride and makes that huge sacrifice to legitimize Philip as co-CEO at Titan, think about what that means.
Xander gives Philip stability, power, basically forgives him on a corporate level.
Exactly. Xander provides stability, removes the toxic element of the forgery from the corporate table. In doing so, Philip suddenly owes Xander. Big time. And he likely feels a massive debt. Not just to Xander, but maybe for the damage done to Sarah, too.
So, as a gesture of making amends for his own part in the drama.
Philip then feels obligated, the theory goes, to go to bat and try to help the marriage. He tries to smooth things over, maybe talk to Sarah, maybe advocate for Xander.
So Philip's corporate redemption becomes intrinsically linked with Xander's marital redemption.
Perfectly put. It creates this powerful, potentially unified Kyriakis push towards the reunion. Philip, having been legitimized by Xander, now works to legitimize Xander to Sarah. It's a fascinating potential dynamic. #tag outro.
Okay, so, wow. What does this all actually mean when we boil it down? We've gone through the history, the deep psychological stuff, the trauma, and this structural prediction that seems to guarantee a reunion before the holidays. And we've landed on two profoundly different pathways, two potential strategies leading to that same outcome.
It really does boil down to a central question, doesn't it? Is it going to be pride versus performance?
Pride versus performance. Explain that.
Well, does Xander have to climb that whole mountain of deeds we outlined, scenario A? Does he have to get the tangible anger management certificate, swallow his salty pride to grant Philip co-CEO status at Titan, execute some grand heroic rescue?
Right. The path that requires him to basically dismantle his personality flaws and rebuild himself into a fundamentally changed man, then prove it with actions.
Yeah, see, that's the performance path. Hard, long, requires massive change.
Or does the burden actually fall on Sarah? Scenario B. Does she just have to have that epiphany, recognize Xander as her person, swallow her pride just long enough to deliver that very specific, sincere, validating apology?
Followed by the promise of lacy lingerie.
Right. Banking on that prediction that, for Xander, Maybe a man's deep need for acceptance and physical connection can actually trump months of psychological damage and corporate warfare. The pride path for her, maybe. Swallowing her pride is the main action.
It's a stark choice between those two routes, isn't it? But regardless of which path actually unfolds on screen, they absolutely must overcome that central psychological disconnect. The one rooted so deeply in Xander's past traumas, his quest for legitimacy, his core wounds.
Because the ultimate reconciliation, for it to stick, it has to address why. Why Sarah's perceived disloyalty triggered such fundamental violence in him in the first place. Violence that was clearly fueled by those deep mommy and daddy issues we talked about.
That's the core wound that needs healing, whatever the method.
Okay, so this brings us to a final provocative thought. Something for you, the listener, to consider as you watch these events unfold in the coming months. Xander's deepest issues, the ones that led to the violence, they stem from betrayal, loyalty, and his fundamental sense of worth within the Kyriakis family structure. They're issues tied directly to the Kyriakis name, to the patriarch Victor, and especially to the corporate throne of Titan Industries.
Right. Titan isn't just a company for him. It's the symbol of his belonging, his legitimacy, his father's approval or lack thereof.
So given this deep-seated systemic trauma around family and business, here's the question. Will the Titan co-CEO promotion, that complex business move designed to correct a corporate betrayal that cost him half his power, will that actually be a more potent, more deeply healing symbol of change for Xander than some grand, heroic, life-saving deed like rescuing someone from a fire?
It's a fascinating question. Which type of action truly addresses the core psychological wound that led to his violence? Is true lasting healing for someone like Xander found more profoundly in achieving family business legitimacy, in finally feeling secure in his corporate belonging? Or is it only found in that more archetypal heroic action, risking his life for others, proving his protective instincts?
Which path truly salves the wound left by mommy and daddy? We'll leave that with you to mull over as you prepare for what sounds like a pretty dramatic resolution coming this holiday season.
Definitely something to think about.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll catch you next time.